Well, son, I'm back with the milk. Well, son, I'm back with the milk. Well, son, I'm back with the milk. Now all I have to do is wait for title.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. It's the last TMT of the month, so you know what that means. A Patreon request. This one's a little more interesting than usual. Rather than talk about a deck that we know is going to be bad, we're talking about one that we pretty much have no idea in terms of the playability. In the wake of the OCG's unbanning of Tidal, let's take a look at a list that's going to get a lot better come next TCG update. Dragon Ruler.
What's up, YouTube? I'm looking forward to giving you guys Tom Mack's top 16 Dragon Ruler deck.
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the #1 place to go if you need a pack simulator, a card database, or want to read a wealth of strategy articles. They also post breakdowns and lists from every major TCG and Master Duel tournament, including the Master Circuit series. Give them a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's discuss the Dragon Rulers. The Dragon Rulers were a series of historically broken cards that released all the way back in the early teens. It might surprise you to learn that these cards were designed during Obama's first term because they wouldn't look out of place in a pack released today. Each one has 3 effects. One that bounces them during the end phase, one that special summons them from the hand or graveyard by banishing 2 dragons, and one unique effect that can't be used the same turn as the special summon. Blaster is removal, Tempest is Rhoda, Redox is Reborn, and Tidal is still at the corner store getting milk. These daddy dragons have baby counterparts as well, which can be discarded to summon them from deck. These cards broke the game in half when they were first released, survived a half-dozen ban lists, and were even top tier with 1 apiece legal at the same time. Which is almost where we are now. In the OCG, titles returned, but even in the TCG, there's room for these monsters in a modern deck. By supplementing these dominant daddies with the completely flopped Armed Dragon Thunder cards, we can ensure we have enough dragons in rotation to make effective use of their greedy summoning conditions, weaving through rank 7s and 10-star setups in the process, courtesy of the Rose Dragons. The end result is a combo deck that looks strikingly similar to the state of Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2013, and hopefully the results will as well. So with that, let's get into the card by card. We'll begin with the Dragon Rulers. First up is Blaster. This, like all Dragon Rulers, has the ability to banish a total of 2 of the same element or dragon monsters from your hand to graveyard, except itself, to special summon itself. And during your opponent's end phase, if you control this special summoned card, that's special summoned by any means, it's returned to the hand. And if it's banished, you can add a dragon monster of the same element from your deck to your hand. And finally, you can discard this card and a similarly elemented monster to the graveyard to, in Blaster's case, target a card on the field and destroy it. In Tempest's case, to add a dragon monster from your deck to your hand, and in Redox's case, to special summon a monster from the graveyard. In this way, he's kind of like a whack Vernisylph. It's crazy to think of these cards as on the limited list when you can play like 13 copies of this guy today. After that, we've got the babies. These all have the same effect as well. You can discard this card and a dragon or similarly typed monster to special summon the associated daddy from your deck, but it can't attack this turn. We've got 3 copies of Burner, 3 copies of Lightning, and 3 copies of Reactin. After that, we have the Armed Dragon Thunder monsters. These aren't particularly strong, with the exception of this piece of semi-legacy support, which came out a little bit after the rest of them. Pile Armed Dragon allows you to send a Wind Dragon monster or another level 7 or higher dragon monster from your hand to the graveyard to special summon it from your hand, and allows you to send an Armed Dragon monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, except Pile Armed Dragon. Target a face-up monster you control. It gains attack equal to the level of the monster sent by 300 until the end of the turn, and you can only attack with 1 monster per turn. In many ways, it is functionally like rank 7 circular. Sending a Armed Dragon Thunder monster from your deck to the graveyard can be very good, because all of them have effects. If sent to the graveyard to pay the cost of an Armed Dragon effect, you get to do something. Armed Dragon Thunder level 7 says once per turn you can send a monster from your hand to the graveyard, send this card from the field to the graveyard, and special summon a level 10 or lower Armed Dragon from your hand or deck. And if it's sent to the graveyard to activate a dragon monster's effect, you can add an Armed Dragon from your deck to your hand. Armed Dragon Thunder level 5 says, once per turn you can send a monster from your hand to the graveyard, send this card from the field to the graveyard, and special summon a level 7 or lower Armed Dragon from your hand to deck. And if sent to the graveyard, activate a Dragon monster's effect can add a level 5 or higher Wind Dragon monster from your deck to your hand. This, of course, can get you Tempest if you lack it already. And Armed Dragon Thunder level 3 says, once per turn you can send a monster from your hand to the graveyard to send this card from your field to the graveyard, special summon a level 5 or lower Armed Dragon monster from your hand to deck. And if sent to the graveyard, to activate a Dragon monster's effect can draw 1 card. After that, we're playing the Rose Dragons. These are fantastic for a number of reasons. The most important is that they are tuners. Our end boards are going to be chock full of rank 10s. The 7-star bodies of the individual Dragon Rulers and the Armed Dragon Thunder cards play really nicely with these, especially because there are so many incredible 10s for dragons specifically. Think Dispotter. Think about how Big Chungus interacts with cards like Blaster. Anyway, Roxrose Dragons says if normally special summoned, you can add a card that mentions Black Rose Dragon from your deck to your hand, except for Roxrose. And while in your graveyard, if a face-up Rose Dragon or Plant Synchro you control is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can add it to your hand. We're playing one of the limited Red Rose Dragon to this day. If this card is sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can special summon a Rose Dragon monster from your hand or deck, except Red Rose Dragon. Then if sent for the Synchro summon of a Black Rose Dragon or a Plant Synchro, add a Frozen Rose or a Blooming of the Darkest Rose from your deck to your hand. I'm going to be completely honest with you, that's the first time I've ever read that effect. We're playing one Dragoonity card, Dragoonity Guizarm, which when normal summoned can target a level 4 or lower Wind Dragon or Winged Beast monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but to negate its effects. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can special summon this equipped card. You can only use this effect once per turn. Unsurprisingly, that's being played because we are on Dragon Ravine. Gives a little bit of extra utility, but also this card's just innately incredibly strong in the deck, can be searched off of Romulus, and can pitch a card to send a dragon from your deck to the graveyard or grab a level 4 or lower Dragoonity from your deck to your hand. We're playing one copy of Armed Dragon Flash, one copy of Basil Rose Shoot as the search target for Roxrose, and then non-engine. We've got one copy of Called By, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Mourner, and 3 Bell. Loading up on these instead of cards like Infinite Impermanence and Effect Veiler because they have added utility just by virtue of being a level 3 tuner and playing nicely with our Synchro pool. Speaking of, let's go there now. We're playing Despotter. We're playing one copy of a Red Bear. We're playing Chungus, and of course we're playing Baron de Fleur. We are also playing some pretty powerful Xyz. Typhon is really strong in this deck, as is the 7 line you may remember from Kashtira decks. These 2 cards enable a rank 7 to attack 3 times, which is usually lights out for an opponent that is staring down a field full of daddies. We've got Big Eye in here, and then a bunch of Link monsters that are very simple to go into. Apollosa, Dark, SP Little Knight, Dragoonity Knight Romulus, IP Masquerena, Herodic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, and Striker Dragon. Now, notably, we're not going to be searching the field spell with Striker Dragon, but he does come up. In the side deck, we've got 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, 2 Lightning Storm, and Harpy's Feather Duster, 3 Evenly Matched, and 3 Summon Limit. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Goblin Rider, and as much as I'd like to extol the value of a Big Gabonga, I'm feeling pretty confident here. Our opponent doesn't have any hand traps, so let me show you what this deck can do uninterrupted. We're going to begin with the effect of Reactant. That's going to grab a Red Ox from deck. Next, we're going to trigger the effect of the Armed Dragon level 7 for an Armed Dragon level 3. Normal summon a Roxrose Dragon, grab a Basil Rose Shoot, and make a Baron before committing to a Burner. We'll go Burner effect for Blaster, then afterwards we'll trigger the effect of the level 3, and oh my god, that's a pretty good draw. We're going to activate Basil Rose Shoot to get the Red Rose Dragon from our hand to the field, and then make a Dispotter that cycles into a Roxrose Dragon. Then afterwards we can activate the effect of Blaster and the effect of Dispotter to cycle back the Red Rose Dragon and end on Chungus. Finally, we'll special back this Radox, go into Striker Dragon, and Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. Good luck to our opponent. They'll begin with a Rhoda, that's going to grab them another Goblin Rider. Next, a Foolish Burial in order to send the Mad One. They will go for Doug the Assaulter, and then followed up with the Kagamucha Knight. They're going to grab a spell from deck, at which point we'll go ahead and fire this copy of Hieratic Seals that trades for Called by the Grave, but means at resolution we can trigger the effect of the Chungus in order to banish their Foolish Burial card and their Doug. Next, they're going to go for the effect of the Grand Meeting to get an extra normal, and followed up with a Grand Arrival, which we will negate with the Baron. Big Gabonga is still live here. They're going to cycle back this Mach Speed, but unfortunately they don't really have a particularly good answer for this Dispotter. They're going to end on a Mach Speed and a Typhon, but unfortunately that is just fodder for a Moonlit Chill, so they'll pass back to us and we can just clear from here. We'll go Redox effect in graveyard to summon it. We'll go Blaster effect in graveyard to summon it. We're just going to go ahead and switch the Chungus to attack position, go into our OTK line, and attack a whole bunch of times with a singular monster for well over lethal damage. Our second match is up against Dragon Link, and Dragon. Our opponent's drawn sort of 2 hand traps, and we've opened 2 hand traps, God, the pair of ravines staring at each other. This is truly the dragon experience. Our opponent's going first for game 2, so they're going to begin with a copy of Bestial Lubellion in order to grab a Magnamut. Afterwards, going to go Dragon Ravine and pitch this copy of Baldrake in order to send a copy of Black Metal Dragon to the graveyard, trying to reborn it with a World Legacy Guard Dragon. Been a while since I've seen that card. We're going to bell the Guard Dragon, and then afterwards they're going to go Magnamut. We'll activate Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill here on the Magnamut, and then they'll activate the graveyard effect of their copy of Lubellion in order to set a copy of Regained. This is an okay open from an opponent who has stopped twice, especially because they have the infinite impermanence, but we should be able to push through. We're going to begin with a copy of Tempest, then afterwards we're going to go for a Burner in order to get a Blaster. That Regained is going to trigger and bring back this copy of Magnamut in attack position. Uh-oh, they're at 55. We're going to go for Dragon Ravine here off of the draw from the Armed Dragon level 3, and we'll grab a Guizarm. We'll activate the effect that fiends out the infinite impermanence, but we should be able to win from here. We'll just go into a copy of Chungus. We'll trigger the graveyard effect of the Blaster, trigger the effect of the Chungus in order to banish this Bestial Lubellion and a card from the graveyard. They do get to draw a single card, a nice one, off of the Regained. Then we'll bring back the Red Ox and just go for our lethal line into the Odd Eyes Rebellion, over the Magnamut, and in for well over lethal. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on, what else? Fire King Snake Eyes. We've opened 1 piece of non-engine, they've opened 2, and they've also opened Bonfire Witch, so this might be pretty difficult. They're going to begin with a copy of Bonfire into Snash. Snash here is going to grab What Else Popular. They're going to summon Poplar to their side of the field, and then afterwards they'll activate the effect to grab an OSS. They'll link it off for a Link Rebo and put the Poplar in the back row before firing the Ash, sending the Poplar for a copy of Oak. Oak here is a pretty good Ghost Mourner target, but unfortunately they have the Kirin, which makes that targeted effect negation just a little ridiculous. They're going to be able to summon the Poplar back and then send it for the OSS into the legendary Fire King Ponix. All right, cat's out of the bag. We know exactly what they're on now, and down comes the field spell, followed by a Diabellstar for a Wanted. They're going to link off for a Masquerena, then activate FKI in order to pop this copy of Kirin and grab a copy of Garunix. They're going to go Garunix 1, Kirin 2, summoning back the Ponix and activating the on-field Garunix effect in order to send an Arvada, which will trigger, getting them back this copy of Kirin. Next, they're going to make a Princess. Princess here brings back this copy of Oak, which has not yet activated its summon from deck effect, so down comes the Flamberge. They are going to set this copy of IP Masquerena into the back row, make Ambler Whale, and pass. In draw phase, they'll activate Flamberge for the IP, and let's see what we can accomplish. We'll begin with this copy of Reactant to summon a Red Ox, and then afterwards we're going to go Armed Dragon Thunder to add a card. Now, they don't droll here, and the reason they don't droll here is they want to draw cards more. They're going to go for the IP Masquerena into an SP Little Knight in order to banish our Roxor's Dragon. Then afterwards, we'll trigger the effect of the Flamberge in graveyard to go to Oak Ash. That's going to summon back this copy of Ponix, and also it is going to grab from deck to hand a Poplar. New Chain, we're going to activate the effect of the Pile Armed Dragon, then activate the level 3. They will activate the Princess in graveyard, popping the Ponix in order to pop our Pile Armed Dragon. That triggers the Garunix in graveyard, and I think it's probably time to go next. So it's time for game 2, and while our opponent's hand is looking a little worse, there's only 1 card in this match that's going to matter. What a great format, am I right? We're going to begin with a copy of Lightning. That's going to summon a Tempest from deck, then we'll activate level 5 in order to grab a copy of 7, which we can pitch with the Reactant to not only summon this copy of Red Ox, but trigger the effect of the Armed Dragon Thunder level 7 in the graveyard. Down comes Armed Dragon Flash, which gets us a 3, and that's the material necessary for a Romulus. That is a really good infinite impermanence target, so they're going to go for it, and afterwards we can normal summon the Ash Blossom to make a Baron. It's Tempest time. We will summon it to our side of the field, and then we'll activate the effect of the Red Ox in graveyard to make an IP Masquerena, set a summon limit, and pass. Our opponent draws for turn. That's a pretty sick rip. They're going to go for the Sinful Spoils Hunter Fiend, grab themselves the Witch, and activate her effect. They're going to set an OSS, add Resolution. We're going to activate the effect of the IP Masquerena for an SP and banish the Witch, forcing them to commit 1 more monster, here the Oak, before we can flip up the summon limit in response to the Kirin, forcing them to pop this copy of Flamberge in hand, at which point they'll concede. Cool! So it's time for that all-important Game 3, and despite the fact that our opponent is going first, we've opened a very interesting card against them. They're going to begin with the standard open, pitching a couple of Wanteds for a Diabellstar, and then setting an OSS. They'll activate the OSS in order to grab an Ash, and then they'll activate the Ash effect for a Popular. So against pure Snake Eye, they can pretty much do the entire combo without ever committing more than 1 Link monster to the field, but we watched our opponent in Game 1 go for a line that puts IP Masquerena under the Link Haribo, so once they do that, it is Fantastical Dragon Phantasme time, and thankfully we do find a hand trap here. It's a little quirky because they're going to be able to use Fire King Island here to destroy the Snake Eyes Flamberge and activate it as Chainlink 1 to Garunix's Chainlink 2. They do get the summons back here in Ash and an Oak, and they'll trigger the effect of the Garunix, setting a Ponix, but we can bell the activation of the Promethean Princess, which means they're going to have to go into Wolf, followed by Ambler Whale to get back Garunix, then afterwards they'll activate the effect of Wanted to draw a card in its Crossy Road. They'll go for Ponix in standby, which is no big deal. We'll go for Pile Armed Dragon here, and then afterwards we can activate the effect of the 7 7 in graveyard, they'll go for Promethean Princess, but we still have the live Phantasme. So we'll just go ahead and negate that. Afterwards, we're going to normal summon a copy of Roxrose, and we're going to go into a copy of Bestial Dispotter, getting the other tuner from our deck into a Basil Rose Shoot. Pile is going to send a 3, which allows us to draw a card. It's a second copy of Burner, whatever. We're going to pitch alongside another dragon, so we can go ahead and grab ourselves a Blaster. This is perfect Nibiru time, but thankfully they have a card in Banish, which allows us to shuffle back and negate for Dispotter, and next we'll make Baron de Fleur so we don't have to contend with anything else. We'll bring back a tuner with our Basil Rose Shoot to go into Chungus before banishing cards for Blaster, triggering the effect of the Chungus. Our opponent's going to go for Nibiru here off the crossout. And we're just going to banish this Ambler Whale and the Promethean Princess. We'll use Dispotter to summon back this copy of Dragon, and we'll get it. Now, unfortunately, despite the fact that our board looks crazy, we don't have lethal because we have to contend with both Garunix and the Ponix. But we can put our opponent in a position where they probably can't win the game. We'll Baron popping the Fire King Island, which of course triggers the effect to pop the Ponix as well, and we'll end on a Heavenly Spheres. We'll pass back to our opponent. In standby, they can trigger the effect of the Ponix and get it back to their hand. We can Baron to tag back into this Phantasme because it's such a hassle for them. They're going to go for Ash. We will not let that resolve, so it'll be negated, and they will go to combat trying to walk over the Phantasme, but no thank you. I'm going to put that back in your hand and grab a copy of Redox from deck. They'll pass turn. We'll activate the effect of the Redox to put back in hand, and should just be a hop, skip, and a jump to lethal. Just have to remember the Nibiru. We're going to bring back this copy of Blaster and make our big boy attacking 3 times for lethal, though I don't feel like it's the deck that won as much as it is the non-engine. So we're back with the deck, and it's not great, unfortunately. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. The Dragon Rulers themselves are great bodies for Link and Synchro material. Any baby essentially allows you to summon that Dragon Ruler twice in one singular turn. 2. The deck has an incredible turn 3. You're going to have 2 to 3 Dragon Rulers in the graveyard ready to resummon and OTK with. And 3, being level 7 gives you access to the Odd Eyes Rebellion line, which is really strong, as numerous Kashtira pilots have shown over the last several months. And the cons. 1. Because each Dragon Ruler is limited, if you draw one alongside its associated baby, it means you're going to have an awkward time summoning it unless the rest of your hand cooperates. 2. The in-hand effects are often pretty underwhelming. Redox's Reborn is really strange to use on turn 1 and hard to push through interaction on turn 3. Most of the time, the only effect you're going to want to activate of theirs is the resummon of Graveyard for extra deck purposes or for the body. And 3, the deck's got a really big weakness to hand traps. The deck folds to Droll completely. Due to the lack of Galaxy Tomahawk, there's not really anything good you can do if you just get stuck with 2 level 7 bodies. The deck likes to refill its hand and search to keep card advantage. SP, without that, your boards and your resources are fairly underwhelming. There's like a Dracosac Heat Soul line, but due to the deck only playing 10 non-engine, it's not really particularly worth it, and it's extremely resource intensive as well. The baby discard to summon effect is also very vulnerable to Ash Blossom. If you hit an early baby with Ash, you can go -2 if you don't draw any of the Armed Dragon engine, and you're going to be stuck with 3 cards to make a really low ceiling board. Not a great time to have a weakness to cards that activate from the hand to impede your plays. Overall, the Dragon Rulers failed to establish a dominant rule with their return. Perhaps when Tidal comes back from the store, they might see a splash in other decks, but something tells me their time has passed. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These videos are basically subsidized by, and occasionally suggested by, my Patreons. If that's something that's interesting to you, please check out the link in the description. For now, I'd like to shout out my high-tier patrons, including Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Brett Henry, Canner, Seaweed, Darkmaster Zork, Derp and Dragon, Devin Senpai, DJ Elephant, Enraged Peacock, Gravity, Half Miss, John Piet, Juan Cruz Avila Zati, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Luis Hernandez, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Puffin of Doom, Rabout, Rose Lapine, Solar Flare the Ricka Queen, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, Your Pot of Greed Does What, and Yuki. I couldn't have done it without you.